We've just left Port Lincoln about, I think it was about 90 minutes ago, and we're being on the road for a little bit. I like to stop somewhere a little bit picturesque and have some breakfast, which is cornflakes in my Milo cup, because I actually I don't have a bowl, and a plastic spoon that I got from a takeaway store once. We've just come through a place called Mount Hope. And I need a little bit of hope because I'm about to cross the Nullarbor. It'll take about 20 hours of driving to get from Port Lincoln through to Esperance, which is said to be one of the most beautiful places in Australia. My family, or my mother and father, always spoke about that when they retired they would spend their time travelling around Australia in a four-wheel drive, and I kind of wondered how it happened that I'm driving across the Nullarbor in a four-wheel drive before them, seeing as they're almost retired, but we'll see how it goes. It should be fun. We're at pretty much the start of the Nullarbor Desert, the Nullarbor Plain. Really interesting. This is not what I expect. It's quite overcast. Today we had a little bit of rain before. I must admit I was expecting blue skies and complete sand everywhere. Even underneath my feet it's quite soft. We've spent about 9 hours driving from Port Lincoln to get to this point. We've got about 2 hours to go and we'll get to the South Australia, Western Australian border, where I'll have a little bit of a sleep overnight and then get up really early the next day and head off to our next stop, which will be Esperance. You look in the distance over here, you have the last petrol station for a very long time. It's quite interesting. It's these petrol stations pop out of the middle of nowhere, and if you don't get your petrol or your diesel there, you're pretty much cactus. And here we are amongst cactuses. Good morning, everyone. We're about 6 a.m. in the morning on the West Australian South Australian border. The only place that you can stay here when you're crossing the Nullarbor is this wonderful mosquito-infested surrounds around me right now. I'm about to cross the border, which means that I need to eat this apple because you can't take fresh produce like fruit across the border. So I'm going to quickly eat this, and then we're going to get across the other side. Welcome to Esperance, everybody. It's week 5 of the 38-week National Challenging Homophobia Tour. I'm here to talk to some local young people about what their life is like in Esperance, which is kind of like a sleepy seaside village. I want to know what life is like here for the average lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender young person. So let's go find out. Behind me now is the Pier Hotel, which is one of the main watering holes in Esperance. It was here at the Pier Hotel that I sat with a bunch of young people who identified as bisexual and lesbian. She said that she only got onto Facebook because her grandmother actually coerced her to. Her grandmother then saw that she'd actually joined up a gay kind of society in Western Australia. As a result of that, rang up this girl's mother and said, "Is she gay?" And the mother said, "Look, yes she is. Is that okay?" And she said, "Okay, that's fine." And as they were saying that, the father yelled out in the background, "She thinks she is, but it's just a phase." Then the grandmother actually sent a message to the young lesbian and said, "I love you. I don't care that you're gay." That young lesbian sent a message back to her grandmother and said, "I love you, but I'm sorry." Then her grandmother sent back again a Facebook message to her granddaughter and said, "You have nothing to apologise. I love you. Please be true to yourself." As I've spoken about before, this national tour is one of many surprises and many pleasant surprises at that. But one of the surprises I didn't expect for Esperance, where I wasn't necessarily supposed to come for that long, was to be walking through the local Woolworths supermarket and to run into a very good friend of mine from Berlin. The person who I met was Matt.
Matt worked for one of my landlords whilst I was in Berlin. I was in Berlin actually writing my book, Beyond That's So Gay, Challenging Homophobia in Australia's Schools.
I met you at a Pilates class and I thought, what an energetic but modest guy. And then after some conversation I figured out that you are writing a book on an, I think, important and very hard to handle topic.
So whilst I was in Berlin, obviously I was trying to write this book. Did you make any observations about me whilst I was writing the book?
You're the first person I met who worked constantly on his work. I've never experienced that before.
Yeah.
Very focused.
Yeah.
It's a really nice, calm, little, I think it's a city, not a village anymore. I like the calmness and it's very close to the ocean. It's wonderful beaches. People are lovely. We met a few and we got some invitations. It's a great place to be, at least for us, to escape the hassle of the city. It's a good place to be.
So I've just come from a very exciting meeting at Esperance High School, so Esperance Senior High. Not only did I speak with one school psychologist, I actually ended up speaking with three. I spoke with three school psychologists, one student chaplain, and also a school nurse. So I got a real kind of good sense of what was happening both across the school and also in other schools, including some primary schools in the region as well. This is a really good example of how I started off my week in Esperance with one contact, and I spoke to someone. They then said, go and talk to such and such up the road, go and have a cuppa with her. I've ended up speaking to most of the welfare staff in the region in Esperance, and I must say that it's been incredibly refreshing. As has been the theme of my tour, I went in for about 10 to 15 minutes and I emerged about 90 minutes later, and it was an incredible discussion. At times it was really fun, and it was just, they talked about how for them it was a warm, friendly discussion. So when they heard that I was coming to their school, they were a little bit tentative, and they thought, well, what can we say, and what will Daniel want to know from us? And they've left saying it's a really good model. We really enjoy talking about our work. We feel that we can ask you questions, and we feel like we've learned a lot in a very short period of time. So a really good outcome, I guess, for 90 minutes work. Because Esperance is within the same region as Kalgoorlie, I've got lots of contacts now through the people who I've spoken to today, who I can go and talk to in Kalgoorlie. So what that means is they've said, look, go and talk to such and such, tell her that she's got no choice but to have a cuppa with you whilst you're in Kalgoorlie, which means that those kinds of, I guess, contacts open up doors. It means that I get to speak to a whole lot of people who I wouldn't otherwise. So I feel like I've had a really, really good day in Esperance, and I can't wait to get to Kalgoorlie and talk to a whole bunch of people.